Hiya, my name's Charlie and welcome to my channel, and today's video is going to be a ranking from the Women's Prize Shortlist books, and I'm just going to rate them from the books I love the least all the way up to the books I love the most, and so I'm just going to dive right in. The book that I put as my least favourite is probably the one that I actually think will win, and that is Sorrow and Bliss. This is one that has been so universally loved and it's also recently won a book prize, which I can't remember the name of the book prize, so I'll put that across the screen. So I know how many people adore this book, but obviously for me not so much. In this book, for those of you that don't know, we follow Martha, and she's just about to turn 40, and it's sort of, we witness her marriage breakdown and sort of her mental health, all the mental health issues that she has, and sort of, we follow her like that. This book, I read this last year, so for context, I read this last October, so quite a while ago, before a lot of the hype had happened. I had heard a few people praise it before then, and I bought it quite quickly after hearing, I think it was I don't know when, but I'm sure I saw on Twitter, Anna, this is when I was on Twitter, that's how long ago, Anna from A Case for Books loved this book so much, so I bought it pretty quickly in a hardback form, and so I started it last October and it just didn't work for me. So the first half I did love. I picked it up and I was racing through it and I was laughing, and obviously it's quite emotional as well, so I was feeling all of that. But there must have been a point where, I think it's a point where the narrative shifts, and for me, I just remember, I don't remember as much about the plot, but I remember not liking it. I remember suddenly feeling disconnected from it, and it's sort of the ending, I remember this visceral feeling of just really not liking the ending. I don't know why, so maybe if I reread it I would feel differently. At that time in my life it was quite stressful here because we were getting the kitchen done, and it was again, I was literally on the cusp of turning 40 myself, so I was that's why I think I built it up in my head, because I thought I was going to love it so much more than I did, and it kind of let me down in that way. But there are so many people of you that do love it, so yes. Also, I forgot to say content warnings for this. I'm going to try and give content warnings for each of these books, just because I think it might be helpful. Content warnings for mental illness, suicidal thoughts and miscarriage. That's the content warnings. Anyway, so that's my 6th place. I do think it will win, but yeah, not my winner personally. Right, the next one I've put in 5th place, is The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. This is a book primarily set in a bookshop in Minneapolis, I think, and there's a ghost in the bookshop called Flora, and we follow this character called Tuki, and this is set in sort of the late 2019 to late 2020, so it's obviously very current, and it has a lot of the issues to do with COVID comes up, and obviously the Black Lives Matter protests and things, so there is trigger warnings in this for racism, police brutality, cultural appropriation, death and addiction. So this book, so my thoughts on this book: I enjoyed this book as I read it, and I thought it was, I not flew through it, because I think there was a point when I was considering DNFing it. Sort of, I think that was maybe halfway through it, but overall I did think this was a good book, but it kind of has faded a lot from my memory, even though it wasn't that long ago I read it, and it's sort of, so I think it was well done, but it's not one that I don't think is going to stand the test of time for me personally. But that being said, I would read more from the author, so I definitely want to read more of Louise Erdrich's books, but yeah. So then my 4th place is The Bread the Devil Knead. I'm going to give the content warnings at the beginning of this one, because this one is, I think, probably the hardest hitting book out of all of them. This has trigger warnings for domestic abuse, child abuse, rape, gun violence and incest. This was very, very graphic, very, very hard hitting and uneasy book to read in places, and I did struggle with it in that way. But anyway, I'll tell you about the premise. The premise, in case you don't know, we follow Alethea, who is, again, nearly 40. There's a few of these characters that are just about to turn 40. And she is working in her boutique store that she works at in sort of her local town when she witnesses a young woman, or a woman, being gunned down, I think, by her partner, being killed by her partner. And it sort of really hits home for her because she herself is experiencing severe domestic abuse at home. Yeah, this, like I said, was not an easy read. What I did think, it was really, really beautifully written. I feel like this is one I would look out for. I know this is a debut novel, but I would look out for more of Lisa Allen Agostini's books, because it did hook me in. The plot keeps you going, even though it's not easy. Yeah, but what I loved most about this is how it showed the complete strength. Alethea is like this really strong woman, and obviously she's got this really dark violent history in her family. It's very like all those things, but you see how much strength she has, and it's sort of, I love how dynamic a character she is, and I really think, yeah, I thought she was just really well done. And I know I think some people have said, like, in terms of it's quite coincident, like how the plot plays out. It's kind of quite coincidental, and I don't know, but I thought it was really good, well done. So me personally, it was a successful book, but yeah, very, very brutal and lots of trigger warning. And my number three was The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki. This one, so content warnings for mental illness, death of a parent, grief, self-harm, drug use and drug abuse. This book we follow, so it's been a year since Benny, 13-year-old Benny, has lost his father, and he starts hearing the objects around him talking to him. First of all, he tries to sort of run and sort of like hide, and sort of he's trying to block it all out, but then he ends up going to this like public library, and he sort of meets this book, finds this book, which is his book, and this book is kind of the narrator of the book. It sounds like it doesn't make sense, but you have to like check it out, honestly. So yeah, and then we also follow his mother, who's Annabelle, and obviously we follow her. She's filled her house with loads and loads of objects as a way of sort of like filling the void of the grief, and I thought that was just beautifully done. And then yeah, so this book, out of all of the books on all the books on the long list, I would have, if I would have like looking at the long list itself, I would have probably wouldn't have thought this would have been a me book, but it worked so well. It was beautiful. I just really liked Ruth Ozeki's writing, and yes, it's quirky, and yes, it's quite it's just so unique, but I really enjoyed it, and I completely connected with it. I just really loved the character of Annabelle. She was I just think she was just like such a wonderful character. Particularly, there was a scene that I want to mention that I just thought was really beautiful, and I know this is quite niche, it's only if you've read the book you know what I mean. And there was a scene with the crows, when the crows, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a scene with the crows, so if you know what I mean. And I just thought that was just beautiful. I loved that bit, and that was just so wonderful. So yeah, I really enjoyed the book. This is number 3. If this wins, I will be quite happy. Being honest, I like this book, so yeah, I love this book, and I definitely want to read more Ozeki. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that one. That's my number 3. My number 2 is kind of another, I would say, controversial Marmite-ish book, and that is The Island of Missing Trees. Content warnings for war, death of a parent, homophobia, alcoholism, abortion. Yeah, that's it. So this is we follow 2 timelines, and one with Costas and Daphna, who are a Greek Cypriot and Turkish Cypriot, and basically they're sort of like the Romeo and Juliet kind of characters. They're sort of, it's forbidden love, and they're sort of, they're not really meant to be together. The families don't want them to be together, but obviously we follow how they get together. And this is all told as well, from the perspective of a fig tree who is witnessing their love. Also then the other timeline we follow is in the future with Kostas and his daughter Ada. Kostas and his daughter Ada. And this is, they are living in London, and Ada is struggling, and again, so we're sort of following her as she's sort of like finding a bit more about her past, and her parents and her mother and stuff like that, the history of their relationship and stuff. Yeah, I know lots of people dislike this immensely, but I really loved it. I don't know what exactly hooked me, but I just love the writing style. I found I wanted to turn the pages really a lot, and I love the nature writing in it, and it really worked for me personally. Yeah, like I said, I know a lot of people dislike this book, but I loved it. I loved so much about this. So yeah, I loved it. That's why it's now my number 2. So the book in my number 1 spot is Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. This is just one of my favourite books ever of all time. I'll quickly give you the content warnings. The content warnings for graphic rape scene, which is graphic, the sexual assault, adult minor relationship, alcoholism, domestic abuse, death of a parent. Yeah. I loved this book so much, and I feel like I'm going to find it quite hard to talk about because I just love it so much. The tagline for this is Great Circle tells the unforgettable story of a female aviator determined to chart her own course in her life at any cost. So it's a dual timeline. We follow Marianne Graves as she grows up, and we witness her very early doors find a love and fascination of aeroplanes, which I just loved because I myself used to grew up with the fascination and love of aeroplanes. And then we follow Hadley, who is a movie star who is previously been cast in like this kind of Twilight-esque trilogy movie, and she wants to break away from the stigma of those parts, and she wants a completely different role, which is why she lands the part of playing Marianne in a movie. And it's just, I just loved it. I keep saying I loved it. Yeah. So I read this last year for the Booker Prize when I read the entirety of the long list, and this was the one that I just loved the most. Yeah, so I just characterization in this book is just beautiful, and I loved the plot line of it. I think it's sort of like the plot line and the characterization are just perfectly balanced, and I loved all the historical parts, particularly surrounding women aviators, which is and their role in the war, which I didn't know very much about, and like this has sort of got personal connections to me because when I was growing up, me and my father used to go down to air shows, and so like the descriptions of like the sounds of the aeroplanes and like the types of when they were naming different types of aircraft, I was just like, I was right there in that book. I just felt it. I just loved it. And it's, yeah, I've just got a real connection to this book. So this is the one that I really want to win. What I actually think will win, as I previously had stated, is Sorrow and Bliss. But what I want to win would be Great Circle, obviously Missing Trees, or Ruth Ozeki's The Book of Form and Emptiness. So yeah, those have been, all Shortlist is an amazing shortlist. Even though I had my problems with Sorrow and Bliss, would I be happy? No, I wouldn't be happy. So apart from Sorrow and Bliss, I would be happy with any of them winning. And do you know what? They're all like objectively, they're all great books. So to me anyway. So yeah, I look forward to seeing who the winner is next week. Let me know in the comments below who would be your favourite, who's your favourite, who do you think is going to win versus who you want to win. Is that different? Yeah, let me know all your thoughts in the comments below, and yeah, I'm excited to see who actually takes winning the prize. So yeah, yeah, sending you lots of love. Yeah, so yeah, bye.